Hello and welcome everybody to the Current Culture Podcast. I'm your host, China, they, them, and I will be guiding you through this current culture adventure. So here at this podcast, we like to do a little bit of everything, whether it's anime and video games, or we're looking at music and dance trends, or you want to feel a bit fancy and get into theater. We'll do it all, as long as we're staying current and as long as we're keeping it fun and informative for your person. So, today's episode will be going into anime, which is a fun favorite of mine. Long are past the days where you used to be the only anime person, where people could only name Pokemon as the anime that they knew. And now anime has made it to the big screen. Now we have animes like Demon Slayer, which broke box office records, as well as Jujutsu Kaisen, which just made it to the movie theaters. My apologies to all those who did not realize that half of that movie was going to be a recap. So, without further ado, let's head on into our way back discussion of anime. So, our first segment is Make It Make Sense, where we're going to be asking some of the popular questions that anime fans, both new and old, have. First off, why is anime so popular in the first place? And are we really happy about that? So, anime started as a grassroots campaign. There's no official or commercial way to access anime in the beginning. Basically, go thank your grandparents and your parents for being the ones in the trenches who were looking up VHSs and creating their own fan subs and fan dubs. They were the ones really putting in the work out there. It wasn't until us 90s kids who were looking in the 90s and 2000s who got to watch Toonami that got to actually see the commercialization of anime start to begin. For us, we were the ones staying up till 12 a.m. just to watch that one episode, and then the crushing reality whenever you miss 1 week and don't understand what's happening the next. And you think it's bad whenever, like, your mom or your dad walks in on you watching anime? Imagine going to a public library, because, like, I didn't have Wi-Fi growing up. I didn't have a cell phone. So being in the public library with watching sketchy ads on whatever site, and then being terrified of the library and seeing whatever scene was about to pop up. You know there's always that one scene. So now we move on to the current day, where now we have streaming services and anime is more accessible than ever for practically everybody. So now we have the onset where anime is so accessible, and are we happy about it? The anime tourists. Are they annoying? Maybe, but back in the day, you didn't like casuals either. But truthfully, the only ones who really should be having that much beef are the oldies who were buying VHS tapes and passing those around. Because really, it's all just a consequence of commercialization of anime. Really, us 20-year-olds, we really can't say anything, because we're a product of it too. Cartoon Network saw a niche community, saw people had an interest, and then started broadcasting it. And now streaming services are doing the exact same thing. So truthfully, we're all in the same boat. That doesn't mean that it doesn't come with problems, though. So we have AI dubbing, which definitely brings the problems of questions of ethics and consents. This has definitely been brought to the forefront with Amazon being really sheepish about its AI dub of Banana Fish and quietly pulling it from its services after the pushback of it. But it's not the only case of AI being used as a substitute for voice actors. Recently, there's been a big controversy around 11 Labs, and they've gotten a lot of negative publicity after they used the voice of Billy Kametz, who passed away in 2022 after his battle with colon cancer. And now there's been reports of his voice being used, and if you don't know who he is, he's the voice of Naofumi from The Rising of Shield Hero and Josuke from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. He's been used to create unauthorized AI impersonations using his voice. And this isn't the first time the text-to-speech software has been facing legal problems, as well as concerns over the use of their AI voices. So even giving them the benefit of the doubt, because some actors do want to use their voices, want their voices to be used by AI databases so that even after they're passing, their voice can still be used for roles. It's still a bit concerning when you have companies like this that use the unauthorized use of voice actors' likenesses for AI training. I mean, 11 Labs still has multiple ongoing lawsuits, with one being with 2 voice actors already going on, with the voice actors Carissa Vacker and Mark Boyett requesting the company to stop distributing their voices, as well as to give them the profits from the voices that have already been used using their likeness. And the trend is only increasing, with this very same company joining hands with Ep.1, which is a Japanese voice talent agency that's employed multiple people, like stars like Rei Takahashi from Konosuba, or Minami Takayama from Detective Conan, or Takahiro Sakurai from Jujutsu Kaisen. This is a big voice talent agency, and now it's working with an AI dubbing company, which kind of marks a concerning trend for the voice acting industry. So here's the big one. I've heard of this a lot around. How is Japan, home of boys' love, banning LGBT marriage? So, my Fudanshis, my Fujoshis, my Yujin, I'm sorry to break this to you for those of you who did not know. Your favorite boys' love couple would not be able to get married in modern-day Japan. The Japanese court ruled recently on a ban on same-sex marriage and ruled against protections for same-sex couples. This means Japan is the only country in the G7 that doesn't fully recognize same-sex couples or provide them legal protection. Although this isn't rare for Asia, this is the only case in G7. Now, that being said, that doesn't mean Japan isn't without its progress. This verdict was out of 6 courts. So out of the 6 courts, this was the only ruling that ruled against it. So these were going on throughout 2019 and 2021, and it's going on across the country. So now the case will be moving up to the Supreme Court. So there's still hope. And that being said, there is a law that's pushing for more gender inclusivity by saying that there is a law that was pushed by the Japanese Diet, which is the national legislature of Japan, which is pushing for all citizens, irrespective of their sexual orientation and gender, to be respected as individuals. And it's a good start. The legislation wants to implement and promote the understanding of LGBT people and wants to protect them from unfair discrimination. So you can't say that no progress is being made. And even with that being said, 70% of Japanese people are in support of LGBT couples, with an overwhelming 84% of that being from the youth. That being said, boys' love does not mean queer acceptance. Yaoi itself emerged in the 1970s, which is primarily from doujins. These are works that are made to parody shonen mangas. This market is mostly for women. The term boy love emerged in the 1990s, with yaoi being used mostly in the West as a more outdated term. But the BL and boy love space is mostly a way for women to explore their sexuality and desires through male relationships, and to explore gender roles and power dynamics that aren't existed in heterosexual romances. So many of these are actually really problematic and oftentimes show non-consensual acts. So even when thinking about it in hindsight and in Japan's history, back in the 1854, Japan opened its borders. Homosexual relationships and LGBTQ has existed in Japan for centuries. dating back to samurais, going back to kabuki. Japan has a long history. It wasn't until the Meiji era when Japan opened its borders and then had the influx of Christianity and Western influences that Japan started introducing laws and started having a stigma and banning of gay relationships. Thus, BL came in the 1970s. So when you're saying this argument, why Japan homophobic? You're really recreating the meme of 145 years of social conditioning against 50 years of boy kissing. So this is Seen It or Skip It, where I'm going to do a quick fire of my emojis that represent how I feel about these movies. I'm throwing some oldies and some new ones at you. First, I wanted to go with Ninku, which I feel like I want to do a Naruto symbol because it was like the first time you see the Naruto run. I'm pretty sure they did it before it was even in Naruto. Also, I wanted to like high five the 7 people who know this movie because I know we all share this same core experience of seeing this movie after watching Yu Yu Hakusho because it was part of the same DVD pack. And I feel like that's the only way you saw this. It was either that or you found it in like a VHS, but like I just want to call out like the 7 people who all had the same experience. Next, I was thinking of Ghost in the Shell, and I just kind of feel like the cool sunglasses emoji fits it because the entire time I was like, I don't know what's going on, but this is super cool. And also, this is The Matrix. But also, The Matrix is based off of this. And then next, I feel like Promare. Promare? Honestly, I really only watched it because it looked like Kamina. I feel like that was a lot of us. I was just like, Kamina's a firefighter now. And like, I was missing Gurren Lagann. But like, I stayed for the ship. Like, yes, it had a good social commentary, but also I was like, they're adorable, and I want to watch more of this. And then Demon Slayer Infinity Castle. I was ready for this movie. Like, I gotta put a lightning bolt because like I was just ready for Zenitsu to show up and show out. Like it was his time. This movie was for him. Okay. He was ready. But like through that entire movie, like I came to the theaters decked out with literally a ring symbolizing each Hashira. Like I was just like, I gotta wear something so like my favorite character doesn't bite it. Like I gotta go. And then like last, I gotta think of like Chainsaw Man. I'm like stuck because I feel like 2 emojis fit for it. Like the smart answer makes me feel like the butterfly because like the whole time I was watching when I saw the butterfly scene, I was like, but wouldn't Reze like also die if she like isn't that also trouble if she's like supposed to be the spider? Isn't she gonna be just as bad off as the butterfly Denji? And then I got to the car afterwards and I'm like, it was a monarch butterfly that's poisonous. And I was like, oh my gosh, cinema. Like that was my moment. However, like the simple answer emoji for me is like, that's a shark. I just want to see my shark boy being best boy. And like that's my simple answer for it. Now, after we had our fun, I feel like we need to take a second and press pause on a serious issue that's happening in the community. And that's been happening in the community for a really long time. I know you've probably seen a lot of clips talking about Squid Kids passing, and a lot of clips talking about the racism that cosplayers are facing in the community. There's been a lot of hate towards actors, towards cosplayers, as well as other Black creators. And you can see a lot of hate on their pages. However, as it's been trending, there's also been a lot of love being spread to those same creators to combat the hate. And this is all an important dialogue to be had, and plenty of people are having it. However, I also understand this one point that's been made of how this problem has been in the community for years. This was something that even I hesitated with whenever I was young. I was scared to cosplay because I was nervous about being made fun of. I was nervous about, you can't cosplay that character because they're not your skin tone. Like, I was not great at confrontation. So I did not want any problems. I just wanted to be in the community, but like, I was scared of that same backlash. However, it took a terrible tragedy in order for it to finally be addressed. And in that time, there's been so many tragedies that have already occurred and that are still going on. And it shouldn't take a hashtag or a trending topic for these things to be addressed. This has been a known facet of the community for years. And it feels disingenuous in a way. And that's the nature of social media, maybe. But it feels disingenuous to make something so tragic feel like a hashtag. Because whenever the hashtags are over, whenever it's not trending anymore, those kids who are hurting, those kids who have heard those comments, who are being bullied over just wanting to share in the community. Anime community didn't start out as something popular. Literally, it was considered a badge of honor if you were being like made fun of for liking anime. So to go around and do that exact same thing to other people is what so makes no sense and is so hurtful. So whenever we're thinking about this, whenever like the hashtags are over, what do we do whenever the next person who's facing this, how are we supporting? Are we still showing up for them? Or was the outspoken rage only because there was a camera available? Because for every person that had 1,000 following, who had 1,000 followers, who saw this, who felt this pain, there's plenty of other kids, there's thousands of other Black kids who want to do this, who want to share in this community, who have faced so much hate that they're now being pushed to the exact same response. So, whether you recognize it or not, action shouldn't need a camera. You should be able to recognize the pattern. You shouldn't need a tragedy whenever there's already an existing pattern of harm. So One Piece has been everywhere. The discourse has reached far beyond anime and manga. It's now reached the political sphere as well as book talk. And everyone's asking the same question. Is the anime about pirates going against their world government political? Well, One Piece is the name of the treasure that the pirate Gold D. Roger left behind. You know, just watch the opening of like the first episode of One Piece. Actually, the first season, the opening of the song literally starts with the same thing. Wealth, fame, power. This is what drove them to the Grand Line. Like, gives you the whole spiel. But main character, Monkey D. Luffy, and his crew are trying to get the One Piece, the greatest treasure, to become the Pirate King. It was written by Ichiro Oda and became a serialized comic in Shonen Jump back in 1997 with an anime in 1999, and now has a live action in 2023. But it's been 28 years with over 100 volumes and 1,000 episodes, and still going strong. One Piece centers around themes of liberation and explores government corruption and the impact of war on society, as well as the horrors of slavery. Therefore, it shouldn't be too surprising that there's a lot of political topics that are being discussed. In One Piece, the world government, which is their political entities, aren't portrayed as the good guys. They do things that are shady. They do whatever they can to keep their power. They have government entities like the CP9 that protect government secrets at any cost. Literally within the first 5 episodes, you don't even need to go into a whole arc. You don't even need to finish a season. Within the first 5 episodes, you already have the setup that the law doesn't make it right. And just because you're breaking the law doesn't mean you're being unjust. We literally have the setup of Luffy, who wants to be a pirate, and Kobe, who wants to be a Marine, both having to confront the realities that not all pirates are good people, but some are, and then not all Marines are good people, but you can be. We already have the setup. We also have topics of racism as well as slavery with the fishermen and merfolk. I'm sorry if you didn't understand the whole like discussion of prejudice in that one scene with Jinbei. I feel like that says it all already. When we have Jinbei, who's one of the merfolk, giving a blood transfusion to Luffy, having a whole monologue sequence talking about how no matter what side of a conflict you are going to be shedding the same tears and you'll shed the same blood. It'll be red no matter what side of a conflict you're on. The show sheds light on so many topics. It talks about liberation and talks about challenging corrupt governments. It's a story that talks about facing challenges and fighting against oppression and inequality. It also talks about plenty of real-world issues, including displacement, territorial loss, the preservation of culture, as well as deforestation, pollution, exploitation of natural resources. Even the characters themselves are all different explorations of humanitarian ideals. Sanji, one of my favorite characters, simply because of the fact that no matter what, everyone deserves to eat. The chef on the team, no matter if you're an enemy or not, Sanji believes that food is a human right, which is something that a lot of nations could learn from. So the One Piece flag has been flying across the globe, and after watching the show, it's not that hard to understand why. There have been protests in Indonesia, Nepal, the Philippines, Madagascar, France, Peru, Mexico, Morocco, Italy, and the United States. And all across this world, they've been flying the One Piece flag. There's a really popular image that you've probably seen if you look up Nepal and One Piece, which shows the One Piece flag flying across the burning Parliament building in Nepal. It's a striking image. One Piece has been the item and icon that fuels protest. And when you think about it, many of these protests are fueled by Gen Z, who grew up with One Piece. It started as the Saturday morning cartoon that they watched, and now that they're older, they can see messages, and now they're experiencing the same topics that they watched as a kid. So now One Piece is more real to them than ever before. I'm ready for some hot takes. Throw all your stakes at me. All anime is political. Start off with the biggest. Politics is literally just how things impact your life. Everything impacts. Even the making of anime is a statement that's political. And it doesn't have to be on some macro level. And it doesn't have to be in the way that a mecha anime, pretty much all of them is literally some child soldier fighting against a corrupt government. That's also weirdly exploring themes of sexuality. Not in that way. It doesn't have to be in that way. But even just the idea of watching just your silly favorite anime of 1,000 girls who really, really like you, or just people who are in community, watching just your silly animes. It does not have to be a serious topic. Any of those animes are all still political, and the fact of just building community is a political topic. That doesn't mean it's a bad thing. Similarly, it's okay if you don't get the subtext. Whenever you're watching, like, my overpowered nephew, who's a garbage can leveling up to 999, I don't expect anyone to always be turned on trying to examine the social themes of being a trash can. If you want to examine the social themes of being a trash can, I mean, that's cool too. That's fine. You don't gotta, though. It's also, I understand why piracy exists. In a way, it is necessary. Should you support whenever you can and how you can? Yes, absolutely. But also, it does make a statement that no one wants to get a virus on their laptop. Nobody wants to get the pop-up ads of singles in your area. I hope. So if people are risking their own devices to watch a show, that show was probably one really, really good, but like also people want to do the easiest way possible. That means that there's a problem with your service that people are turning to alternative avenues to watch it. People usually try the easier way first. And I can even call for the example of it with shows like A Sign of Affection. Still, it grinds my gears a bit. It still grinds me because even with A Sign of Affection, it's all done during sign language, and they even have, and all of the dialogue is done either through sign language or it's done by texting on the screen. However, the subtitles for it, I could not find a legal avenue that showed one of the legal streaming platforms that had it, where it showed subtitles for both the sign language that's happening as well as the text that's on the screen and the spoken dialogue. So there literally is not a legal way to fully understand the story, which is problematic. So, that is my long spiel about all of the wonderful world of anime and topics that I love. Thank you for watching all the way until the end. Feel free to drop a comment and tell me what your favorite anime is, or what topic, what stuck with you, all your questions, concerns, revelations, new explorations. And feel free to leave a comment and subscribe, and I'll see you next Tuesday. Thanks for watching. Bye.